Have you dreamed of bigger things for your life? Then you are in the right place. Each week, you will be given tips on how to change your inner dialogue, conquer your goals, and ways to step into a higher version of yourself. I'm your host, Lauren Kubat. I'm a motivational speaker who hosts personal development events. I'm a sought-after fitness instructor, a wife, and a mom of 2 young boys. I'm obsessed with all things personal development, and I believe anyone can achieve the life they want. Let the Become Your Vision podcast be the inspiration you need to step into greater things. Now let's go. Hello. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. Today is the big game Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. I don't know what's the rule with you can't say Super Bowl, you have to say the big game? Is that like major advertisements? Because I don't think anybody is going to come for me for saying Super Bowl. But anyway, we are not big football fans in our house. We don't have any plans for that. Yesterday, we watched the UFC fights, meaning my husband bought them and I ate the snacks. But anyway, we are talking about therapy today, self-love. And speaking of self-love and just love in general, because it's also the Wednesday after Valentine's Day. I don't know if you guys are big fans of Valentine's Day. That's another thing in our household where we're not really into Valentine's Day. I will say, like, we get the boys stuff and we celebrate that way. And Tom and I have been together. That's my husband. We've been together since I was 16 and he was 17. And so this year was 16 years. Holy crap. But anyway, in the very beginning, of course, he got me flowers and candy. And now he boycotts Valentine's Day. He's like, why am I going to buy flowers that are usually a certain amount and they're double that amount because it is Valentine's Day? And he also doesn't like getting me things out of pressure just because everybody else is getting chocolate and flowers. He likes to surprise me at random, which I actually appreciate more. You know, so he'll come home randomly with flowers or, you know, my favorite coffee. And on Mother's Day last year, he will celebrate that one. He got me this beautiful room on Kiowa Island. We're in Charleston. And it was so gorgeous because I always talk about like, oh, I just need like a night to myself where I can sleep. And I always say like, just give me a hotel room. And so he got this sweet hotel room. But anyway, so I don't know. If you guys are into Valentine's Day, that is super cool. If not, that is cool too. But most importantly, we need to talk about self-love. And a form of self-love is therapy. And I'm going to share my recent experience with therapy in just a second. One of my love languages is words of affirmation and reviews. I love because it's words of affirmation when you share this podcast to your stories or share the workout you did with me or whatever. Like, I feel so good. So I want to shout out one of the reviews that was left for me. This is from Candy Lowe. That's my girl. She says, just listen to a few more shows and they are so informative and relatable. It almost feels like you are directly talking to me or asking the person on the show the exact same question I'm thinking. Episode 92 was so good. I even copied and shared to some of my friends and family that could really use this information, sharing the breakdown and difference in confidence and self-esteem and how to work on it can definitely help everybody because we all have something in either category that needs a little fix. I will say when you mention your ride class and how some of us have come to you to say we get emotional in your class, I had to bust out laughing at work because I'm so guilty. And when I tell people about the cool downs and the affirmations you leave us with is so touching that I get teary-eyed. They can't believe it. And yes, they laugh at me, but I'm okay with that. LOL. Thank you, Candy. You're amazing. I appreciate the review. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's get into therapy. Let's get into mental health. So mental health is just as important as physical health. And you don't just go to the gym when you're obese, right? You go, well, most of us, right? You go before there's a problem or when you just want to feel better about yourself. And we can't really say the same about how mental health is viewed. I believe that it's so important to work through things and talk to somebody before there is a trauma, if there ever is a trauma. And that is why it feels so good. You know, when you come home, you had a hard day and you just like vent to your mom or your spouse or a friend. It feels so good to just like get it off your chest. And 9 times out of 10, they'll give you advice or how they would handle it. Or sometimes you just need somebody to just say word vomit and just say everything that you need to say, and it feels good. And that is basically what therapy is. You don't necessarily have to have a trauma before you go. Now, it's a shame that some insurances don't cover therapy, and if you don't have insurance, obviously it's not covered. And I'm going to share some other ways to kind of work around it. Thankfully, my insurance does cover it, but if you don't have insurance or if yours doesn't cover it, there are other apps that you can use. I believe there's Headspace, there's BetterHelp. One of my friends went and used the BetterHelp app. I was trying to get an idea online of how much it costs. Now, I will say I did surface level researching. So what I found was one BetterHelp, I believe it's $60 to $90 a session. So it is expensive. Like I said, I didn't really dive deep into comparing prices and things like that. You might be able to find one cheaper, but shop around, and until you find one, maybe you can buy a larger package and then the sessions become cheaper. So if you're thinking about this, definitely do your research. So I'm going to explain too why I went. First of all, we can always become better. I am such an advocate for finding somebody to help me become better. I've hired business coaches, I've hired speaking coaches, branding coaches. I recently hired a personal trainer that I still have to book my appointments for. And some of you might be like, well, why did you hire a personal trainer? Don't you teach fitness? I do. But with a coach, so when you're living your life, it is so easy to get tunnel vision and you don't see all the parts. So for an example, with the personal trainer, and even my friend, I was squatting and she noticed that I was leaning more towards one side. And I was like, really? I never noticed that. And that's exactly what like a personal trainer will do. They will pick out your weaknesses so that you can become stronger in that area. I also believe like the most successful people have coaches. I've heard before that Oprah herself has, I think, 7 coaches, from like a life coach and a business coach, etc. So I'm a firm believer in hiring all the people that can help me become a better person. I booked this appointment too when I was kind of in a funk. So I say that you don't have to necessarily book therapy if there's a trauma, but something was off. So I would say since early December, and now it is mid-February, this week I finally felt like myself again, and just something was off. I'm also getting my hormones checked because after I had our second son, I had hypothyroidism. So I was trying to pull in all the resources, all the things, all the people that I can think of that are going to help me figure out what exactly is going on. So maybe it is my hormones. Maybe I just needed to get some things off my chest. Who knows? But I'm trying to figure that out. So this week I finally felt like myself again. And I felt like this, like gray cloud had been removed. Like I got my creativity back. I got my energy back. I was starting to look at my body again where I wasn't looking at it so critically. And I haven't done that in a very, very long time. And the episode I did with Heather McWright a few episodes ago, probably, I don't know, maybe a month ago, I was like, oh my gosh, it would just brought up some points that I also wanted to work on. I am a perfectionist. My body is, I feel like my brand, like when I'm coaching and instructing people in my group fitness classes, all eyes are on me. And it's easy to get caught up in like, oh, there's this body part that I want to change and that body part. And I don't care who you are, we can be so critical of ourselves, physically and emotionally and all the things. And in therapy, I'm going to tell you about the therapist. She was the recommendation that I got from Heather McWright. So if you're in the Charleston area and you need somebody, I highly recommend her, and I'm happy I went to a recommendation because I've had therapists in the past that were okay, right? They just weren't that great. This is probably the fourth one I've tried, and I was automatically drawn to her. So she's probably in her 30s. She has like this blonde, really pretty, curly, big hair. She was wearing these like cute retro glasses. Her nose was pierced. She was wearing this like red lip. Her outfit was very like just cool. I'm like, oh, I like this. I like this woman. And the people that I've had in the past were kind of like dry, and that's just not my personality. I can't connect with somebody that is just like very dry and very monotone, and I just can't. But obviously, there is somebody out there for everybody. Maybe you don't like somebody that's like super bubbly and things like that. So you might have to go through a few therapists to figure out which one you like. Hey, before we get into today's episode, I want to talk to you about being financially fit. Finances can be a huge stressor in many households, not to mention confusing, because it's not something that is generally taught in school. So it can be a bit overwhelming when trying to figure out what to invest in, how to invest, creating a budget, and paying off debt. Deborah Ostrom is a sponsor of the show, and she is also a financial coach who helps women create their own financial plan with simple methods, and she offers one-on-one coaching and has an online program to help women take control of their financial future. Check out her website, deborahostrom.com. That's DeborahOstrom.com to learn more about how she helps women master their money. And I will leave all that information in the show notes. But, okay, so some of the things I kind of had to deal with was in the beginning, the annoying insurance stuff. So she sent me some documents that I had to fill out. And I filled them out, but then it didn't post. And then somebody from the clinic was calling me to get my information. And then they're like, can I put you on hold? And then I was on hold for like 10 minutes and I had the boys in the car and they're asking me questions. So then I had to call back. So that was kind of annoying. So I can see why people are like, I don't even want to deal with it. I don't even have time to book my appointment and deal with all this insurance issue stuff. I will say if you put in the work, you will reap the benefits of it, but it is kind of annoying, and it wasn't her fault either. She was like trying to help me, and I'm like, I felt bad too because I'm like, this is not her job. And then she's trying to help me with all this back end stuff. So I will say I had to deal with a little bit of that, but we worked past it. The therapists I've had in the past, this one woman did it out of her house, and her house it looked like her house, and it was cute and like warm and cozy inside. But I felt like I was almost like coaching myself through her session. And she was like, she gave me like, an ice, pack for my eyes. And I forget why she said to do that. I'm sure there's something behind it. But then I never saw her again. She's like, oh, you can book an appointment if you want, but I don't know. Do you really need it? Like that kind of thing. So that was interesting. But in this session with this therapist, obviously you have to talk about your childhood. And I would say my childhood was kind of traumatic. My father, we don't have a relationship anymore. I had to cut him out of my life. It was just too toxic. I didn't gain anything from the relationship. I constantly felt icky, like just guilty for whatever reason. I always felt like I was never enough. So there was some daddy issues there, obviously, probably that stemmed from my childhood, that whatever, just that feeling of not enough. And, when I do feel like enough is through achieving, because that's how I got praise from him. And so that was another reason. Well, I didn't go in to talk about my childhood. I thought I kind of worked through that, but we know how that is. Also, my brother committed suicide in 2015. And anytime I talk about him, of course, I get emotional. So, because I just think about how his life was traumatic with my father and things like that. So I don't know. It just, there's some things I have to work through. So anyway, but the coaching session or the therapy session was so freaking good. And one of the questions she asked me, because I shared too, like, I feel mom guilt. And at the end of the day, sometimes I'm like, you did this wrong and you did that wrong. And being a mom is the hardest, hands down, job that I have ever done in my entire life. And I want my kids to look back on their childhood and be like, that was the best childhood ever. And I can go to my parents for anything. And I'm thankful, like, my mom and I have such a good relationship. I love her so much. No matter what I'm going through, I can be open to her, and she'd be like, okay, let's handle it, or give me some moral support, or hug me. And just like, she's just so proud of me. And I just want my kids to have that type of relationship with me as well. And I just want them to have just great memories of their childhood. And I can be very hard on myself. And that's what the therapist mentioned. She's like, give yourself a break. And it's funny because it's so easy for me to tell other people that, but when it comes to myself, like I said, it's easy to get tunnel vision, and I'm like, you could have done this better, you could do this better, blah, blah, blah. So one of the questions she asked me was, what is it that you think that you're going to recreate from your childhood that is going to be traumatic for your own kids? So something along those lines, like, what do you feel like you're going to recreate from your childhood that is going to be traumatic for your kids? And I was like, whoa, that is deep. I actually made her pause and repeat the question, and I wrote it down on this piece of paper next to me, and I'm reading it from there because I was like, that's the podcaster in me, right? I'm like, that is such a good question. So I was like writing it down, and then also asked her to be on the podcast, but obviously I'm like, you probably can't, but I think you'd be so interesting to bring on the podcast. But she gave me other resources I can use and recommendations there. But I was like, that is so good. And it had me guessing. I'm like, would I do what happened to me in my child, just some of the things that I experienced? Would I ever do that to my children? No, I absolutely wouldn't. So I was like, it kind of was just like this light bulb that went off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I wouldn't. And that made me feel better as a mom. And I just thought it was a very, very thought-provoking question. So if you are struggling, I definitely feel like you should hire a therapist if you can, or I am offering something, and I want to explain the differences because I'm not a therapist. I'm not. But so therapy, psychotherapy, it tends to focus more on the past and the trauma there, whereas coaching is more focused on helping you achieve your future goals. And that's what I do. And I mentioned on last week's podcast, I am having a confidence bootcamp. So I want to share more about that. So the confidence bootcamp is for you. And I want to say, like, I am a former just low self-esteem, social anxiety sufferer. Most of you know that for 25 years of my life. So basically self-esteem develops between 4 and 5. You develop your thoughts about yourself. So it started very, very early for me. I suffered with depression, suffered with anxiety. Actually, at one point, my mom, when I was older, she found my diary from when I was like 12, and she's like, I didn't know how sad you were. And just like thinking about that, I'm like, oh, I get emotional about that 12-year-old girl. But I have come so freaking far, and that is why I'm so passionate about helping women, other women on this journey, because I know how hard it could be. So the boot camp is for you if you worry about being judged by others. You are critical of yourself, and it's difficult for you to overcome your mistakes. You ever feel like you're not smart enough, you're not motivated enough, you're not pretty enough, or just plain not enough. I've been there. And like I said, in that 2-month span of feeling that funk, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, we need to reevaluate here. Why am I feeling like this? Why am I feeling like not enough? And the way I work through my things is through coaching and through this podcast as well. I just learn different things. And we can all overanalyze what could go wrong if we do take a risk. So that is one of the other things that this Confidence Bootcamp is going to help with. So here are the details. It is going to be March 1st, March 8th, March 15th, March 22nd of 2022, depending on when you are listening. It's going to be via Zoom. All sessions will be recorded and will be sent out to you via email. So in case you maybe can't make it to one of the sessions, or you come in late, or whatever it is, you will get the recorded session. They are going to be from 7 to 7:40 Eastern time. The reason I picked that time is I think I can have up to 100 people for 40 minutes. The cost of the boot camp is $17. Like I said, the session is 40 minutes. You can purchase a ticket as a gift for a friend or a mature daughter who is suffering from this. So if you're like, okay, my daughter is a teenager, she's mature, and I think she needs a little bit of help, and you want to gift this to her, you want to maybe like watch it with her, this would be amazing. So with this boot camp, you will receive weekly workshops to help you increase your confidence and help you think about things differently. Like I said, I will coach you. I am a former social anxiety sufferer, and I feel like I'm a self-esteem warrior now. So I definitely want to help you on your journey. We'll also have a Facebook group dedicated just to this bootcamp. So that's going to be different than my vision group. So if you're a part of that, I'll share questions in there, and I'll share quotes and things like that. This boot camp is going to be different from that. It's only going to be for boot campers. How the agenda is going to work. So week 1, it's confidence is queen, baby. Oh my gosh, this one is fire. And we are going to talk about what confidence actually is. We're going to create small wins. Second week, all about self-image. What is your self-image saying about you to you? Week 3 is success and judgment, the fear of judgment. How do we get over that? And then week 4 is all about putting everything that you learned in place and owning your confidence. Tickets are $17. How you can purchase them is you can go to www.laurenfishman.com Lauren.kubot.com. That's LAUREN, KUB as in boy, at.com. I'll also leave the link in the show notes. I would love to have you there. I know that there are some of you that I've never met before, but you listen to this podcast because a friend sent it to you, or you saw it on social media, or a family member texted you this, or whatever it is. Like, I've never met you, so it'd be so cool to see your face in this Zoom workshop. So I love you guys. I appreciate you. I feel like I can just bare my soul on this, bare my soul? Is that a word? On this podcast. And I just appreciate you so much. If you found something to be helpful from this episode, I would love for you to write a review. It would mean so much to me. How you can do that is go to Apple Podcasts, scroll all the way down to the bottom, like first episode, like under there, and just leave a 5-star review, why you like the show. Candy's was phenomenal. You can write just a sentence. It doesn't have to be really long. I heard on Spotify, you can also leave reviews now. This is good for the Android people that listen to me on Spotify and can't leave one on Apple Podcasts. So that would be amazing. You can share this episode with someone. And I would love to see you at the boot camp. Have an amazing week, you guys. And remember, you got this. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you love this episode, make sure you are subscribed so you know when more episodes come available. My goal is to inspire others to become their vision, and one way to get the word out is with reviews. I would really appreciate it if you left an honest review on iTunes, and it would mean so much to me. Thanks again, and remember to go after the life you want. Bye, guys.